Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we're going to be making 4 breakfast freezer meal preps with a bunch of our homegrown goodies. I just went grocery shopping downstairs and grabbed a bunch of potatoes and onions because we're going to make breakfast burritos with fresh potatoes that we grew in the garden this year together. I've only ever made breakfast burritos with store-bought frozen hash browns, so this is going to be kind of fun. We're also going to make homemade kind of like Eggo copycat waffles, silver dollar pancakes, and we need to make some sandwich bread because I need sandwich bread. But all of the bread products that we're going to be making, we are going to break out my new toy that I just bought, and that is a new grain mill. This grain mill has been in my Amazon cart for probably 2 years now. And I want to make our pancakes and our waffles and our bread with some freshly milled flour. I had a grain mill, and I still have it, that is a KitchenAid attachment, and when we first got married, would use it all the time, but it never made the flour really fine enough, and so the texture was always a little bit off. The flavor was fantastic. Fresh ground flour tastes delicious, but the texture was never right. So I finally invested in a new one, and we're gonna test it out today. If you were with me during this garden season when we grew these potatoes, we also grew a bunch of wheat to turn into flour. But before I grind that, I want to just use some of the other wheat berries I already have on hand. Now, before I finish peeling those potatoes, I'm gonna go ahead and preheat my oven to 400. I wanna get the potatoes going first for the breakfast burritos, because those actually need to obviously cook and roast in the oven. So while the oven's preheating, we'll finish peeling these potatoes. So we just got back from being out of town for a week, so I don't have very much meal prepped because we were gone. And it is raining outside, so I do have a bunch of garden projects we need to get to, but I figured I would take this time while it's rainy and kind of gross out, get a bunch of meal prep so that that can be ready for us for next week when it's supposed to be absolutely beautiful and we can spend time outside instead of in the kitchen. So I want to try to get 24 breakfast burritos done. These are Josh's absolute favorite meal prep that I do. And if I make them, they will get eaten. So I have quite a few potatoes here. I'm gonna go ahead and peel. So the first thing I wanted to get going on was these potatoes because I want to be able to have these roasting in the oven while we do a bunch of other things. The next big thing that I want to get going on though is going to be getting the bread rising so that we just have bread in our house, and I'm excited to play around with making bread with fresh milled wheat. It is a different beast than doing it with just a white all-purpose flour, so I'm excited to break the grain mill out and start experimenting with new and fun recipes. So for the potatoes though here, I'm just gonna dice these into kind of small-ish cubes. These I guess aren't gonna take very long to roast. I probably should have got going on the bread first so that could rise. But in my mind, I was thinking these potatoes were gonna take a long time to roast, but because I'm cutting them relatively small, they should roast pretty quick. I'm excited to see the texture of home roasted potatoes in a breakfast burrito versus a hash brown. And I may have peeled a few too many potatoes. We'll see here. I'm having a Friendsgiving this coming weekend, and I'm doing a bunch of the meal prep for it tomorrow. So if I don't end up using all of these potatoes in it, I can just put them in some cold water in the fridge, submerge them, and I can use the potatoes for the Friendsgiving. But actually, I think I'm gonna go ahead and use all of them because I wanna try to get 24 breakfast burritos made. I never can seem to make enough breakfast burritos or breakfast sandwiches. They just go so incredibly quickly in my house because they're so good. So this is the first time I'm gonna try to make this many though. I have a couple different varieties of potatoes here. They kind of got mixed up in the harvest, and so that is totally fine. They'll just be different textures and a little bit different flavor in the potato. This makes me want to try making French fries. I've never made French fries before homemade, so maybe we need to add that to the list of things to try this winter. So I think I peeled too many potatoes than what I'm gonna need for today. So I went ahead and peeled more potatoes so that I have enough for tomorrow. I washed them, I put them in some water, pop these in the fridge, and I'm gonna use these tomorrow for Friendsgiving prep. But these are the potatoes we're gonna be roasting here today. As long as you cover potatoes with water, they won't turn brown. So you can prep potatoes in advance. So I'm gonna get these diced cubed potatoes onto this baking sheet. That one looks like it needs to go to the compost. I think they should all fit on here. And now they don't look like I have enough here. I think I'm gonna have enough because I'm gonna cook eggs. We're gonna cook some veggies to put into our breakfast burritos. And I'm gonna prep that though after I get our dough rising because I want to get some bread made so that we can have sandwiches and things like that this week. So to our potatoes, you could season these however you want. I'm gonna put a good amount of oil on them, and then I'm gonna use some basil salt, just for some delicious flavor. Some homegrown garlic powder that I made. And I think I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. So basil, garlic, oil, and salt. Mix this together. I think I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of pepper on the top too before I put them in the oven. Oh my goodness, it smells incredible already and we don't have anything cooking yet. Now into the oven these go, and now we are gonna break out our grain mill since we have this cooking. And we are going to grind some grain for the first time in a very, very long time. Josh is very excited about this because he loved the flavor of the fresh milled wheat, but the texture wasn't great. So we're gonna see if we can get the flavor with the texture. This is the first time I'm opening this. I can link this exact mill that I have down below. I had it in my cart for a few years and I would go to buy it and it would be out of stock. And then it would be in stock and I wouldn't be ready to buy it, and then I would go to buy it and be out of stock. And so I will link it down below, but sometimes it's in stock and sometimes it's not. I went with the gold one. I just think this is absolutely stunning. Here she is. Oh my goodness, she's very heavy. There's a little brush. I was thinking I would put this in my pantry on the counter and just keep it plugged in all the time with some wheat berries next to it. When milling large quantities to avoid damage to your damaging your milling stone, mill grain in 10-minute increments. Mill for 10 minutes, rest for 10 minutes. Okay, that's good to know. I'm so excited. I'm gonna get that little bit of sticky residue off the... I went with this one because I think it's absolutely beautiful and I want to keep it out on my counter on my pantry shelf. And it had really good reviews too. I've seen many people use this exact mill online, but there's a little bit of sticky residue on here that I don't want on here. How do I get that off? I don't want the dust from the wheat flour to get on that sticky residue. Okay, I just used a little Scrub Daddy with some soap and water, and I think I was able to get all of that sticky residue off. I didn't want to use anything harsh on it because it is a natural material and I didn't want to kind of destroy the finish on it. Okay, so now this is ready to go. We are going to plug it in. I'm going to read the manual and we're going to grind some wheat. Really excited about this. Okay, what does this say? Warning, do not mill any of the following. And turn your mill on before adding grain. Do not mill oily grains or seeds. Okay. So this is the manual, super easy. There are pictures, which I love, and there's 6 directions on how to use it, and then there's 6 directions on how to clean it. So it does say before consuming flour, mill 2 cups of white rice and discard. That's probably to get any of the factory dust and oil and things like that out of it. So I need to run downstairs to get 2 cups of flour. We'll grind that, and then we'll grind some wheat, and we will start cooking with some home milled wheat. Okay, I'm gonna go get 2 cups of white rice. So that's how loud it is when I don't have anything in it yet. So I'm gonna turn it off for a second. So there's a fine setting over here and a coarse setting here. I have it on pretty, let's do, since we're gonna do the rice first, let's do it right there. Then we need to turn it on. Oh, okay, that's what it sounds like. So I run the 2 cups of rice through the mill, and a couple times I go and actually feel the basically rice flour that's coming out of the mill to try to get a sense of how the texture and the coarseness or fineness I'm getting off this rice and how fine this mill can get on a grind. So I do adjust it to a really fineness, because that was one thing I didn't love about my previous mill, is it just did not give a fine grind. So as I'm grinding this rice, I adjust the setting to get a fineness that I like, and then I toss it out. And that was so easy. So I went back and forth between this style of grain mill and the white one that has like a separate compartment that's all enclosed. And I just ultimately went with this one for 2 reasons. 1, it's absolutely beautiful. And 2, I thought it would be nice to just be able to put a bowl underneath it and keep some wheat berries and this out on my counter in my pantry. And I could just easily grind my flour right into a bowl. And it just seemed easier to me. So that's what I went with. So I'm really excited. So now we're gonna go ahead and grind up some, this is soft white wheat. Now cooking or baking with fresh milled wheat is a whole different ballgame than baking with all-purpose flour, because there are so many different varieties of wheat you can choose from ancient grains to hybrids to all sorts of different things. This is what I happen to have on hand. This is not ideal for bread baking, even though I'm gonna make bread with it today because it doesn't have quite as high of gluten content in it. Usually you want a hard wheat for bread baking, and then you want a soft wheat for things like muffins and pancakes and waffles. So this is gonna be perfect for 2 of our recipes. And then for one of our recipes, it's just gonna be a fun experiment. Even though it's not ideal, it's what I have and it's what we're gonna use today. And in an ideal world, you would always grind your wheat and use it within that setting and not store it. What I used to do is I would grind a little more than I would need, and I would store some in the freezer of fresh milled wheat, because the whole berries have oils in them. Once they're ground, they can go rancid. So here we go. We're gonna go ahead and, it actually made less noise when I kept the top off, and we're gonna get this grinding. I have wanted this mill for years, so I'm really excited about testing it out. I think I'm gonna go wipe out any of the residual rice flour. Okay, so here we go. Oh shoot. Okay. We were supposed to turn it on before we put the wheat in there. I think it's probably okay if there's a couple, but it's gonna take me a few tries to get the hang of it. This is the variety of wheat that I grew in my garden that I need to process so that we can cook with it. Okay, here we go again. As I'm grinding this flour, I do adjust the coarseness and fineness a few times. I am looking for a nice fine flour, and so I just feel the flour that's coming out of the mill with my hands and then adjust and then feel it, and I do end up getting a flour texture that I'm super, super happy with, and you're gonna see just how these pancakes and waffles and bread turn out. Spoiler alert, I have now had this mill for a week and I've used it 6 or 7 times, and I'm having so much fun playing around with
trying new recipes. Now, I still only have the soft white wheat berries. I am in the market, or I just ordered some hard red wheat and some hard white wheat, and we will play around with those once I get them. But the soft white wheat is working really well.
It smells incredible in here between the potatoes and our fresh milled flour. It smells amazing. And I'm really excited about the texture of this flour. It's so much finer than the other grain mill I had. So I think it's gonna lead to a better texture bread product, especially when it comes to things like biscuits and pie crust and stuff, because I definitely wanna start learning how to make a really yummy pie crust with fresh milled wheat. So now what I'm gonna do is just make my sandwich bread recipe, but I think instead of using 100% of this fresh milled, I'm gonna slowly start to incorporate this into my bread. So I'm probably only gonna do 2 cups of the fresh flour, and we'll just slowly start incorporating fresh milled wheat into the bread recipe and see if we can get eventually a whole grain sandwich bread recipe. So I just have all my recipes that we're gonna be making today here. We might have to grind some more flour, but we're gonna start with that to give the mill a little bit of a break. So I have warm water here, and I'm gonna add my active dry yeast to it. And I'm gonna substitute honey in this recipe instead of sugar, because I think honey and whole wheat flour just go really well together. So we're gonna let this sit here for a minute. And while that's sitting and getting nice and bubbly, I'm gonna add, I think I'm gonna do 2.5 cups of our fresh milled flour. And then I'll do 3 cups of bread flour. So this is gonna get us the gluten to help keep the bread together. Hard red wheat has more gluten in it than soft wheat, so I definitely need to make sure I have some bread flour in here to get a good textured bread. And we're gonna add our salt. Gonna add our water and our yeast and our oil. And our honey. Mix that together. That's gonna take a while to knead, so I'm gonna go ahead and get going on making some of the veggies and the meat for our breakfast burritos.
If doing a breakfast freezer meal prep is something you're interested in, but you feel overwhelmed by the idea of it, I do have a guide on how to fill your freezer with 24 breakfast sandwiches, 12 breakfast burritos, and 2 savory breakfast casseroles. If you are interested in that, I can link it down below. It has a shopping list, a prep guide, and the goal is to get you in and out of the kitchen as quickly as possible so that you can have some delicious homemade breakfast ready whenever you are.
At some point, my potatoes got turned off. I turned the oven off, so I just turned that back on, and I think our bread now has kneaded long enough. I have some butter in the microwave melting for our pancakes, and this is what it's looking like. It's super soft and beautiful. I just wanted to show you what it was looking like kneading. I don't want to add any more flour. It's pulled away from the bowl. It looks beautiful. So what I'm gonna do is take this out. I could have added some zucchini flour to this as well, but I don't want to change too many variables, I guess. This is beautiful. Look how stretchy this is. So I kneaded this for probably about 8 minutes. I'm just going to kind of get it in this bowl a little bit better so that it can rise in here. I love having my dough rise in here because it has this lid, and I can just have it rise in here while we go on to other things. And it stays warm in there. Move this over here. Josh just got in here and he's really excited that I'm making breakfast burritos. Oh, yeah. And so while our sausage is cooking, our potatoes are going, our bread is rising, we're gonna get going on our pancakes with our fresh milled flour. And I think I'm gonna do 100% fresh milled flour. Josh is excited about this too. He loved the flavor when I used to mill my own flour, but the texture was a little off. So I think that the texture on this is gonna be just what we need to have a nice and light and fluffy pancake. So to our flour, I'm gonna add butter, and I'm making enough to freeze. Obviously, most of what I'm gonna be making today is going to go into the freezer. The bread is not gonna go into the freezer. That we will just enjoy for the next week or so. Now I'm gonna add milk. When I was out of town, I was at my sister's house, and she is an avid cook, and she was telling me that she wanted to get her bread mill out, because she has the same one I do, and she got out of the habit of it, and she wants to get back into the habit of it, and she was telling me all of the delicious things that she likes to make with hers. She actually was telling me, and I'm really excited to try it myself, she uses my pie crust recipe, which I didn't know this, and she uses 100% freshly milled flour, and she says it's delicious, so that's good to know. So I just added some maple syrup to this instead of sugar. My sausage, I'm gonna go ahead and turn down because it's almost done. I don't want it to burn while I'm making my pancake batter. Now I'm gonna add my salt and my baking powder. I should have added my baking powder to the dry ingredients, but I didn't, so I'm gonna add it now. Better late than never. I had to think about that. There's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, and I needed 2 tablespoons for this. And I think we need eggs too. Do we need eggs? Yeah, 2 eggs. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is pouring outside. When we were out of town, we were in Oklahoma, and it was in the high 90s, or mid 90s, I should say, high 80s, mid 90s while we were there. And we definitely came back to fall here. I need to get my garlic planted, but I need to wait till next week when it's going to be sunny. My sausage is done cooking and my pancake batter is done, so I want to get some veggies cooking in my sausage before we start cooking the pancakes. I have here, I just pulled this out of the freezer, a package of diced a package of diced peppers from this year's garden, some zucchini from last year's garden, and some onions from last year's garden. So I'm gonna get these in here. I'm gonna turn the heat back on high, and you could absolutely dice up fresh onions and peppers, but I have enough that I'm doing today, so I figured I would go ahead and just use some pre-diced ones I have in my freezer. Plus, I kind of want to use these onions from last year and the zucchini from last year anyway. The reason I'm putting some zucchini in here is because I don't want to use, I would probably put 2 packages of peppers in here for the amount that we're making, but I kind of want to savor my peppers, and so I figured I could stretch the filling with some zucchini, and no one will even know it's in here, and it'll be a good way to use it up. And I'm going to cook this down until they're nice and sauteed. So this is going to take a little bit of time since it's all frozen. And so it'll be a good time to get these pancakes cooked up. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on too to help steam and thaw these veggies. We probably should have brought in our patio furniture cushions before it started raining, but we didn't. And so next week when it dries out a little bit, that will be on the list of things to do. But it's definitely a good day to be inside, getting a bunch of meal prep done so that when we are working out there, we're not having to think about breakfast. So I'm gonna use my griddle here to make these pancakes. So I'm gonna get this turned on and preheated a little bit. And let's check on our peppers and onions are starting to thaw a little bit. It smells good. These peppers that I grew in the garden this year are my new favorite variety. They are called yellow monster bell pepper. I'm gonna go ahead and take the lid off now so that the extra moisture from the frozen onions and peppers can start to evaporate. And the zucchini. I'll get this on the bottom of the pot here. I like to use a little bit of butter for flavor when I make pancakes or French toast or anything like that. And I think what I'm gonna do is just unfold this a little bit, and I'm gonna go like this. I don't know if this griddle is quite preheated. Pancakes are always a funny thing. You never quite know how the first couple are gonna turn out. I want little pancakes, so I'm gonna use this smaller cookie scoop. Those look about perfect. Maybe I put them a little too close together. So I got a couple of them a little too close together here. I should do 2, 2, 2, and 2. That's what I should have done. I'm not going to touch them until they're bubbly on the top and halfway cooked through.
One thing I have learned about making pancakes is low and slow is better than high. So I have this stove on almost as low as it'll go, and I wait until they're very nice and probably 3/4 the way cooked before I flip them, and then they're a lot easier to flip. In the past, I think I would get too excited about flipping them and they would be hard to flip because they weren't kind of set enough. And I do want to say that this fresh milled pancake and waffles is definitely a new family favorite. They have been being gobbled up by my family, and I will probably always use fresh milled flour when I can because they're so good.
These are incredible. Light, fluffy, a little bit crunchy on the outside, nutty, buttery. You get a hint of maple, but not too much. Fantastic. I did add another 1/4 cup of flour to the rest of the batter, and they're definitely holding up their shape a lot better, and I'm cooking them very low and slow to make sure they get cooked all the way through.
I am the type of person that jumps in with both feet, and then I kind of get the feel of it, and then I start doing research. My personality is if I do too much research up front, I will get overwhelmed and I will never start. And so with this pancake recipe, the waffle recipe, and the bread recipe, I'm just adapting some of my favorite recipes and using whole wheat flour and not doing much research on the differences and how fresh milled flour acts as opposed to all-purpose. And this soft white wheat flour in the pancake and waffle recipe is absolutely perfect. I just substituted 1 for 1 and they turned out delicious. And I will be making these again and again because they are so good. Now, the one thing I am learning though when it comes to bread is it is better to use the hard red or hard white wheat, just a hard berry as opposed to a soft because it has a higher gluten content. And you actually want to soak the flour in the water before you start kneading the bread. And we do a lot of bread baking in the future, and I'll go more into that as we do it. And even though I didn't do it with this recipe, the bread still turns out, but I am at this point now learning how to really maximize using fresh milled flour.
So I think our potatoes are done now. Oh yeah, definitely. Got a little bit dark on this side, but I think they'll be no problem that they're crunchy. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the sausage and peppers and zucchini mixture off because they are nice and tender and cooked now. And I think I can go ahead and flip these pancakes. I went ahead and I put my bread over by the stove right here because it's warmer over there, and so that it can rise in a warmer location. Woo, almost lost my potatoes. So I'm gonna get these potatoes into this bowl so we can mix all of our breakfast burrito ingredients together. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and cook up just a few eggs because it wouldn't quite be breakfast burritos if I didn't. I don't need a ton of them. I'll just cook up maybe 6 or 7. These pancakes are my new favorite whole grain pancake recipe. Not that I've done a ton of recipe testing, but these are fantastic. I have eaten 2 of them. A couple of my family members have been here nibbling on them. That's always a good sign when I'm not even done with the cooking day and things are already being nibbled on. So my eggs are done here, and I think my bread, I'm gonna give it a few, well, yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get this shaped up so that it can do its second rise. I tried the potatoes and they are so good. I definitely will be doing that again, roasting fresh potatoes. I will definitely be using the frozen hash browns as well because it's just so convenient and easy. But the texture on those and the flavor on those is fantastic. So here are my eggs, nice and cooked up. I want the filling to be pretty cool before I put it into the tortillas, so this will be good. Get this in here, let it cool a little bit, and then we can make our burritos. Yeah, we didn't need a ton of eggs, but eggs just help make it say, I'm a breakfast burrito. And the reason I didn't cook up more, I could have cooked up more, is just because I only have 24 tortillas. And so I'm thinking that this is gonna be more than enough to fill those 24 tortillas. And I guess if I have extra, I'll just put in a little dish and I'll eat it just like this as hash for breakfast. I won't put it into a tortilla. See, now I'm mixing this in and I'm like, man, that doesn't look like enough eggs. I might cook up some more eggs, I'm not sure, I'm not sure yet. But for now, I'm gonna get my bread, smells so good. I'm gonna get my bread shaped and I'm gonna get this pan soaking because that egg did stick on there a little bit. I'm so excited to be able to freshly grind wheat again. It has been a very long time since I've been able to do that. Well, I shouldn't say that. I still have the grain mill I had before. I just didn't like the texture. So I could have done it, I just didn't do it. So I'm gonna use this parchment paper to line my bread pans. I'm also gonna go ahead and just shape my dough on it too. I don't feel like getting my silicone mat out and having to clean that. So I'm just gonna do it on this. Oh yeah, this bread feels beautiful. It's soft. Oh yeah, look at that. It smells so good. So this is gonna make 2 loaves of bread. So I do need to cut it in half. I'm just going to do it eyeball school. And then I do want to get all this dough out of here because this is beautiful dough that we worked hard to mill. Actually, I didn't work that hard. I literally just put it in the machine and turned it on. I'm gonna flatten it out a little bit. It's got really good texture to it. It feels like it's holding its shape because we added the bread flour. And I am gonna do sourdough at some point. I've been looking at it. I'm trying to decide if I want to start my own sourdough or if I'm just going to buy one. I've bought them and killed them. I've started my own and I've killed them. I've never actually made a sourdough loaf before. So I'm just trying to decide what I want to do with that. But I think I am going to do sourdough here pretty shortly. Okay, so I have my 2 loaves here. I've got parchment paper. So the last thing we need to do to prepare for our breakfast burritos is actually grate some cheese. Now I went ahead and I just kind of broke the egg up a little bit more so that it'll be more evenly distributed throughout this mixture. And I think that's plenty. I'm not gonna cook any more eggs. And we're gonna get some cheese grated because I love cheese in my breakfast burritos. The nice thing about breakfast burritos is you can make them however you want. You can add bacon, you can add any type of vegetable. You could even put broccoli in here. You could put diced zucchini. You could make them vegetarian and put beans if you wanted. The biggest thing though is they do cook up best if you reheat them when they're not frozen. You can reheat them from frozen, but sometimes the tortilla gets a little bit crunchy on some parts, so by the time the inside is fully cooked through and warm, the tortilla has been warmed up too much. So what I like to do whenever I have breakfast burritos in my freezer that are homemade, or sandwiches, same with breakfast sandwiches, is I like to thaw them overnight It doesn't take more than overnight, and then they will be ready for me. So usually I'll grab 4 breakfast burritos or 4 breakfast sandwiches, and we will have them for a couple days. And I just know that they'll be thawed and ready to go. I'm gonna grate all this. This is probably more cheese than I need, but if I have extra cheese grated, the next time I need cheese, I hopefully won't have to grate it. This is a white sharp cheddar. Monterey Jack would be really good. Pepper Jack would be really good. I do like to wrap my breakfast burritos individually. So I just grabbed my saran wrap, and now I'm grabbing my tortillas. You want burrito-sized tortillas for this. And my counter is clean, so what I'm gonna do is make a spot on the counter, and I usually make 6 or so at a time. And we will probably have these for dinner tonight so that I don't have to do any other cooking today. I think I can fit 2 more here. Now, one thing I've never done is made homemade tortillas to make breakfast burritos. I asked Josh this morning if he wanted me to do that, and he said, don't worry about that. Just use the store-bought ones I already had on hand. But I think at some point I want to try making the tortillas for the burritos as well, because homemade tortillas are delicious. And then the way that we serve these is I serve them with hot sauce and a dollop of sour cream.
I do have a written recipe for breakfast burritos, and I definitely could have followed that and doubled the recipe, and then I would have definitely ended up with 24 breakfast burritos. That's really what I was hoping for, because like I said, I can't make too many of these. They will absolutely get eaten in a very quick amount of time. And I didn't double my recipe. I just eyeball schooled it, and I did not make enough filling. I kept thinking I'm going to make too much filling, because typically that's what I do, is make more than I need. And on this day I did not, because these are pretty good sized breakfast burritos. One breakfast burrito is plenty filling for Josh and I, and so I only made enough. I think I ended up, I'll tell you how many I made. I think I ended up making like 16 on this day, but I do put like a heaping half a cup of filling in each one with the cheese, and it was so delicious. But I do wish I had made a little bit more, because they are going very, very quickly. The pancakes and waffles are also a big hit. Last time we did a breakfast meal prep, we did homemade bagels, and we made breakfast sandwiches out of those. And I have to tell you, those were also absolutely phenomenal. If you want to, spend some time in the kitchen and meal prep some breakfast burritos or sandwiches, I'm sure you will love it if you've never done it before. Because the cool thing is you get to decide what you want to add, and which, cheese you want to add, and which meat you want to add. And it's fun and it's delicious, and we really, really enjoy it.
I got 16 breakfast sandwiches, which was not 24 like I was hoping for, but that's okay. I'm happy that I have those. That's more than I had. And now I'm going to get going on making our whole wheat mini kind of Eggo waffles. And I don't quite have enough flour of this whole wheat flour, so I need to get another about half a cup of all-purpose flour. This is a really easy waffle recipe. This is the first time I'm making it with whole wheat flour though. I'm gonna add butter, which that was actually the amount of butter I needed. Normally I would add buttermilk to this, but I do not have buttermilk right now. So I'm gonna add both regular milk, and then I'm gonna make some buttermilk with a half a cup of milk and some fresh lemon juice. I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute while I add the rest of the ingredients to our batter. I realize I just doubled all of my wet ingredients, but I did not double my flour. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is go ahead and grind up some more flour. So I need 3 more cups of whole wheat flour, and I'm just gonna double this recipe. Wasn't on my plan, but these waffles will not go to waste, so it's okay that I am doubling this recipe. So I'm gonna turn my mill on. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my buttermilk. Now 3 more cups of our flour. Baking powder. I already added salt, and now we're gonna add our eggs. And I'm just gonna use this. We need 8 eggs. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of maple syrup for sweetness instead of sugar. We're gonna whisk this together. And I'm gonna go ahead and heat my waffle maker up. This is a mini waffle maker. My waffle maker is preheated, and so we're gonna go ahead and get some waffles in here. This is gonna take some time to cook all these because they're kind of miniature. But what I'm gonna do while these are cooking is work on getting some of these dishes taken care of and get the kitchen clean while I just run these through the waffle maker. And I obviously did not use all of the flour that I milled. So it is ideal to use your fresh milled flour right when you mill it, but it's not the reality that you're always gonna use all of it. And sometimes it's nice to have a little bit in the freezer ready to go when you need a little bit of flour. And I overfilled my waffle maker. It'll take me a bit to figure out exactly how much to put in there. So I'm gonna put on this Ziploc bag soft white wheat. And this will just be my little Ziploc bag in my freezer of flour. And we're gonna start using fresh milled flour more. And by having a little bit milled, if I need this to make a roux or something like that, I could pull this out and it's ready to go. These waffles smell really good. You know what I think I'm gonna add to my waffles? I think I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of vanilla in them. I think that would be delicious. And the way that we serve waffles and pancakes around here is with, I have to find my vanilla. Apple butter, jam, of course, maple syrup and butter. And a lot of times what I'll do on mornings when I pull these out is I'll fry up a couple eggs or I will warm up some bacon. I like to keep pre-cooked bacon in my freezer. And I like to keep pre-cooked sausage in my freezer so I can just warm that up. And then we can have a protein with our waffles and pancakes or whatever it might be. With the breakfast burritos, I don't serve anything with that except a cup of coffee. Add a little bit more. Yes, I think the vanilla was a good choice to this. These are done. Oh my goodness, they're perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm gonna grab a cooling rack because I like to let them cool on a cooling rack so that they don't steam together. Let me get this mixed in real quick and then we'll add more. I didn't realize I bought this and then after I bought it, it's a 2 waffle maker that makes these mini waffles, which are our favorite. I didn't realize I could have gotten a 4 one, which is what I should have gotten, but it's okay. Get this in here. And then I'll clean my counter up when we're done with the waffle batter that I overspill. These look beautiful though. I just took a little piece off the end of that cooked, the little excess piece, and that is so good. Fresh milled flour, I forgot how delicious it is. I knew we loved it, but I'm so excited to start baking with fresh milled flour again. Now my bread is almost ready to go into the oven, probably has another 15 minutes or so. So I just preheated my oven to 350 degrees. It is rising beautifully. I do want it to puff up a little bit more before we get it into the oven to bake. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a bunch of dishes done and just keep making a bunch of waffles.
About a month ago or so, I can't remember exactly, we experimented making zucchini flour, where I took my freeze-dried zucchini. You can use freeze-dried or dehydrated zucchini, and you can turn that into flour as well. And I eventually want to experiment using whole grain flour and adding zucchini flour. But on this day, I thought, you know what, let's just change one big variable and not try to throw everything at it before like let's just experiment with one thing at a time. So that's what I did. And this bread turned out beautiful. Now it is a little bit crumblier than just a plain white bread because what happens is the whole wheat, fresh milled flour has the germ and the bran still in it. And so what happens is it is able to kind of cut those gluten strands. Gluten is kind of like a rubber band, and it's what holds the bread its shape. It's what gives bread its chew. And whole wheat flours and grains can actually cut through the gluten. And so that's really good when you're making things like pancakes and waffles and biscuits and pie crust, because you don't want a lot of gluten. You want a nice, tender, flaky product. But when you're, talking bread, you want a chewier consistency, texture to the bread. So that's why on this day I use some of the bread flour to kind of make up for that whole wheat aspect of the bread. But I do plan to try to, when I get my hard red wheat berries and my hard white wheat berries, to experiment using those and seeing if I can reduce the amount of white bread flour and just use whole wheat. But it is a whole different ballgame, and it'll take time to learn that skill. So now what I'm doing is I'm wrapping up each of these burritos individually. I like these wrapped up individually. These go so quickly. I don't even put them in a freezer bag or anything. I just pop these in the freezer just like this, and they stay fresh in the fridge. These will be gone within probably the next month. And what I usually do when I have breakfast prep like this is I just pull out, a bag of waffles or a bag of pancakes, a couple breakfast burritos, and then that is our meal prep for the week. And breakfast is something I do not even have to think about. All we have to do is reheat and we are good to go.
So here we have our waffles. Josh tried them and said they were incredible. He's super excited about the freshly milled flour. He said they have a great texture. Pancakes, I'm gonna put this one in the fridge. The rest of these are gonna go in the freezer. This is going to go just in a Ziploc bag. We're gonna cut into this and give it a taste test in just a second. I put this cloth on it just so that the crust would stay nice and soft. That's kind of a trick. And I'll put probably 3 or 4 of these in the fridge, and the rest will be in the freezer. And so that is a lot of breakfast meal prep for the future. I'm gonna soften a little bit of butter. Josh just said he's gonna come in. We're gonna cut into that sandwich bread and see how it tastes. I have a little bit of jam here, and this butter is cold, so I'm just gonna pop this in the microwave for about 10 seconds. Hopefully, I don't cook it too much, and then I'm gonna slice into this. You really should let your bread cool absolutely completely before you cut into it, but there's nothing like hot bread. So Josh is here.
Hi.
All right.
Wow,
So this is
great.
not 100% whole wheat, but about 2/3. About 2/3.
That smells really good.
Feels really nice. Ooh, look at that. Fully cooked. It's got a nice rise to it. It is steaming a little bit. You really, again, should not cut into your bread until it is fully cooled, but look at that.
That looks really good. Nice work.
Thank you. Do you want butter and jam, or do you just want to try it?
Yeah, I love butter and jam.
Butter and jam, okay.
Let me take just a bite first, though,
Okay.
just to make sure, so I can get the subtle notes of the
The full experience.
milled bread.
This is some good butter too, and good jam.
That's good. It's got great flavor.
Does it?
Yeah, you can
Here.
really taste the wheat berry.
It does.
Got great flavor just on its own.
I put honey in it too instead of sugar.
Okay. It's very tasty.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Here's a pat of butter you can put on your, and I'll get a spoon for, yeah, this, I made this for sandwiches, but we probably will just enjoy a lot of it just like this.
I'm really surprised at how this butter is resisting.
It's cold.
Given it's warm bread, but it somehow is resisting. Oops.
The dog's gonna
The
get a
dog's
piece
got
of
a little
butter.
bit of butter.
When I said I only had a little bit of jam here, I really only meant I had a little bit of
no.
jam here. It's because the butter's cold and I didn't want to over microwave it and melt it because I hate when I do that.
This looks great.
There you go.
Perfect.
All right, little snack before dinner. And then I've got a bunch of breakfast burritos for you, and that's probably what we're gonna have for dinner tonight.
Nice, sounds good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Right now I'm gonna try it with the,
I mean, this jam is a winner. You put this on anything, it's gonna be good, but really good texture.
I'm glad we
Good
tasted
chew.
it before we put the jam on it.
Really good chew.
Very good,
Yeah,
very good.
nice work.
Thank you.
Now you'll be ready to use it on the little bit of wheat that we got out of the garden. I'm excited for that wheat.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big project going down there and cleaning it, I think. Are you still researching threshers?
Yes. In that, I have done some Googling. For the wheat too? Wheat threshers?
Well, can you get one that does more than one thing?
Peas and beans could probably be one machine. I'm not sure if wheat can be.
We're
That might be-
considering getting a machine to thresh the black beans because I do it by hand every year and it takes me hours. And I grew about probably 4 times the amount of beans I did in the previous years. So we'll just see. We might end up doing it by hand, but
We'll have raw fingers, that's for sure.
yeah, you have to wear gloves.
It's intense.
Yeah. Josh has helped me grudgingly, but he's helped. I'm so excited. How excited Josh is about, excuse me, my dog is trying to counter surf and get something off the counters. I have to be good about pushing things back far. Like the bread, I actually probably should push that back further. I have lost a loaf or 2 of bread over the years from the dogs. But I'm excited for how excited Josh is about the new wheat grinder. I actually put it right there. And I put my KitchenAid in the pantry because I think that's pretty. It might live here for a while. I tend to use my KitchenAid only when I make cookies and cakes. I use my Bosch when I make breads, and I only pull that out when I use it. So maybe I'll keep that there for a while and keep some wheat berries up there. I don't know. And then sometime soon, if you're new and you want to subscribe and see what it's like to actually take wheat from the ground or from the garden, bring it inside and turn it into flour, please consider subscribing. If you've been here for a while, we are going to be processing that wheat probably sometime next week or the week after, and those black beans, and trying to figure that out. But I really wanted to use my mill before I grind the wheat that I grew because the amount I grew was very little. And so I didn't want it to like go to waste. I wanted to know that I could actually turn it into something, and the wheat that we grew would actually be edible and I wouldn't totally flop it. So I want to do a little bit of practice, and so I'm glad we did that today. And we got practice, and we are filling our freezer with tons of delicious breakfast. So if you are enjoying this and you want to watch more before I upload another video, I'll pop some videos here you can go enjoy between now and then. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I'm going to put these in the freezer, and then it's not raining, so I'm going to run out into the garden. I'm going to go harvest some stuff that we are going to cook tomorrow for the dinner party that we're having this weekend. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.